Ever since man came to rearing animals and farming, thereby exploiting nature, large scale deforestation has been continuing due to overexploitation and mismanagement of forest resources. Deforestation is still continuing at a rapid scale, and the problem has reached to such a proportion that it has totally disturbed the ecological balance, which has led to an ecological collapse. Man's reproductive capacity lies in the second plane, and to control it, the approach should be through knowledge of the reproductive function of other animals. To this end, fruitful research could be undertaken on the factors that cause seasonal reproductive behavior in other animals and on whether it would be possible to permanently extend the inhibitory forces. Ethology is the scientific and objective study of animal behavior, usually with a focus on behavior under natural conditions and viewing behavior as an evolutionary adaptive trait. The origin of the scientific study of animal behavior lie in the works of various European thinkers of the 17th to 19th centuries, such as British naturalists John Ray and Charles Darwin, and French naturalist Charles Leroy. These individuals appreciated the complexity and apparent purposefulness of the actions of animals, and they knew that understanding behavior demands long term observations of animals in their natural settings. At first, the principal attraction of natural history studies was to confirm the ingenuity of God. The publication of Darwin's On the Origin of Species in 1859 changed this attitude. The natural history approach of Darwin and his predecessors gradually evolved into the twin sciences of animal ecology, the study of the interactions between an animal and its environment, and ethology, the biological study of animal behavior. The roots of ethology can be traced to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when scientists from several countries began exploring the behaviors of selected vertebrate species like dogs and rodents. Ethology is a rapidly growing field. Since the dawn of the 20th century, researchers have re examined and reached new conclusions in many aspects of animal communication, emotions, culture, learning, and sexuality that the scientific community long thought it understood. On the face of it, this does not seem an impossible task since, in reverse, we have succeeded in breaking down the seasonal inhibitory force in domestic animals. For instance, the red jungle fowl, the ancestor of our domestic poultry, has, unlike the latter, a fixed and limited breeding season in nature. It is a curious fact, but true, that in truly social insects, such as ants and bees. The majority of individuals are sterile. Thus, there is a built in population control mechanism in the community. Can this model not be emulated by humans? Captive breeding or ex situ conservation has been used in a number of instances to save species from extinction. The principle is to create a viable population of a species in either zoos or breeding facilities for later reintroduction back into the wild. As such, a captive population can either serve as an insurance against the species going extinct in the wild or as a last ditch effort in situations where conservation in the wild is impossible. Captive breeding has been used to save several species from extinction. Reintroductions of captive bred populations can occur to replenish wild populations of an endangered species, to create new populations, or to restore a species after it has become extinct in the wild. There is no single reason, but habitat destruction is certainly a major factor. Climate change, global warming has also increased the threats to birds. Then factor is the mortality of birds caused by windows, cats, hunting, pollution, wind farms, power lines, pesticides, and other dangers, and we are at a crisis stage. There have been some success stories over the years, such as pulling back the bald eagle, peregrine falcon, and whooping crane from the edge of extinction. But more and larger efforts need to be made to halt the decline of our feathered birds. The feather trade of the late 1800s and early 1900s stimulated the rise of the Audubon Society and laws to protect birds. Dr. Salim Ali enumerates the examples of ants and bees to understand how they keep a check on their population. Let's understand how they do it. The term ant colony describes not only the physical structure in which ants live, but also the social rules by which ants organize themselves and the work they do. In terms of social organization, ant colonies are typically home to four different types of ants. The queen ant, as her name suggests, is both the founder and leader of the colony. Her primary function is to populate the colony by laying thousands of eggs. The queen's chambers are located deep within the ant colony as a protection against predators. Queen ants live much longer than the drones and workers who serve her, in some species up to 30 years. They sport wings and are much larger than the average ant encountered outside the colony. Most ants are females, and nearly every ant encountered outside of the nest is a female. Worker ants are females, but unlike the queen, they do not lay eggs. Instead, they are responsible for building and maintaining the nest, protecting the colony from other ants, and Most importantly, feeding the colony. Workers forage for, gather, and allocate food, making sure the queen's offspring will grow to fulfill their responsibilities to the colony. Worker ants are never idle. Depending upon the ant species, workers can live as long as a few weeks or up to a full year. Sometime in the life of every ant colony, the queen lays eggs that hatch into winged males and females known as ale- alates and reproductives. Once they mature, these ants leave the colony in swarms. Their job is to establish new colonies. As with drones and queens, the males die soon after mating, while a certain number of females survive to become new queens. Honeybees are flying insects and close relatives of wasps and ants. They are found on every continent on Earth except for Antarctica. Honeybees are social insects that live in colonies. All honeybees are social and cooperative insects. The hive population consists of a single queen, a few hundred drones, and thousands of worker bees. Workers are the only bees that most people ever see. These bees are females that are not sexually developed. Workers forage for food, that is, pollen and nectar from flowers, build and protect the hive, clean, circulate air by beating their wings, and perform many other societal functions. The queen's job is simple: laying the eggs that will spawn the hive's next generation of bees. There is usually only a single queen in a hive. If the queen dies, workers will create a new queen by feeding one of the female larvae on exclusive diet of a food cell called royal jelly. This elixir enables a worker to develop into a fertile queen. Queens also regulate the hive's activity by producing chemicals that guide the behavior of the other bees. Male bees are called drones. The third class of honeybee, several hundred drones, live in each hive during the spring and summer season, but they are expelled for the winter months when the hive goes into a lean survival mode. Dr. Ali opines that there is a self mechanism in nature to check the population of various species, as we have seen in ants and honeybees, and to maintain its balance, but man has disturbed this by his imprudent activities guided by his avarice. He further adds that all natural disasters and loss of wildlife are primarily caused due to rapid growth in human population. Whatever method we employ, the intellectual or the physical or a combination of both, time is running out for man. He must realize that his body, like that of other animals, is subject to narrow physical and chemical constraints, and that, however intellectually versatile he may be, he could become a victim of ecological disaster just as any other animal if he refuses to pay heed to the warnings of a misused natural system working under fixed natural laws. To us in India, especially, this is the writing on the wall. No one can deny the importance of plant life in continuance of the human race. Without that silent, endless manufacturing process which goes on in the green leaf under the influence of chlorophyll, sunshine, air, and moisture, the world's primary industry, we should surely die. Forests are living societies of trees, shrubs, and other forms of plant cover. Violation of laws governing the extent of necessary forest cover is one of the most tragic examples of human folly in the face of nature's well ordered system. But it does us no good to place all the blame upon the pioneers. They did the thing that seemed right to them under their circumstances. If they denuded our watersheds with axe and fire, if they used the hoe and the plough where only trees could grow, they paid the price in their own lives through blasted hopes and abandoned farms and niggardly living. It is our part, knowing more of the interrelationships of all nature, to repair the damage where we can and to make sure that such things do not occur again. One of the most repulsive of the destructive results of human expansion is the poisoning of rivers, with consequent extinction of fish and of well nigh every living thing except mold and putrefactive bacteria. The fisheries of the lakes, ponds, and streams are among our most important recreational resources, but our rivers are choked with the refuse of civilization. Our lakes are poisoned by industrial and sewage pollution. The water is dangerous to drink and risky to swim in. The plants are killed, which should help to purify the water. Here and there across the continent, municipalities are trying to stop the process of pollution. Several shipping companies have been prosecuted for dumping oil in our inland waterways. And now we are exercised about nuclear fallout. Its effect upon living things is a matter of debate, but there seems to be reason to believe that fallout will be like another influence superimposed upon all natural things. It is a great loss to travel the countryside and not see it, since contact with nature is a vital part of man's enjoyment of life. The centuries of dead leaves that have fluttered to the ground have provided a rich layer of mold, soft as any carpet, with an embroidery of wild flowers to make it beautiful. The drama being played among the trees is without end. In the tree tops, the robins are singing their absurd but delicious little four noted songs. Saucy squirrels are gambling in the branches. Ants are scurrying among last year's leaves on their mysterious errands. These children of nature are all straightforward creatures with very simple intentions. Everyone is supplied with beauties of one kind or another. Watching them, we realize that the mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced and preserved. Biologists are aware of the need to preserve nature's balance and of the techniques, but only public opinion nurtured amid such scenes can make the application of these procedures effective. There is no automatic force in nature which will carry human beings forward irrespective of their own efforts. We need a new creed to be stubbornly faithful to the facts of life and a new determination to contribute our effort in doing the right things. Our hope is in education. The problem is not as simple as 2 plus 2, quickly answered and as readily disposed of. This is a problem of statesmen like people who take a long view, who look not at the next vacation or the next balance sheet or the next election, but at the future of mankind. Since the beginning, the world has presented challenges to living creatures to crawl out of the sea, to live on the dry land, to climb trees and mountains, to change in keeping with changing environment. Every creature is to itself the center of its own universe, but it must have contact with all surrounding creatures. The challenge to us is nothing less than preservation of our species by restoring and maintaining its essential environment. We are surrounded by and we are part of the eternal flux of life in an environment of natural forces. An Eastern proverb puts it, to survive, all men must hold hands, and living things of all sorts are our kin in the wholeness of nature. If we wish to preserve our present way of life, we must come to terms with what is left of natural forest, soil, and wildlife, and it will be on terms laid down by nature, not imposed by us. Any wrong with nature may be for centuries commit, she has centuries to repair, but we, whose days are short, must walk warily, lest we become the victims of the wasteland we make.